Miranda, now we return to what is the day's top story to go even more in depth. What is going to happen with ISIS? How are world leaders, and specifically, how is the United States going to respond to the growing threat? In an op-ed column appearing in the Times of London, President Obama and Prime Minister Cameron of the UK said that the UK and the U.S., quote, will not be cowed by barbaric killers. The comments come after the Islamic State threatened to kill a British hostage at the end of the video showing the beheading of American journalist Steven Sotloff, who, of course, was the second American to be beheaded by ISIS in 2 weeks' time. Joining us now, a member of the House Committee on Foreign Affairs, a Republican of Florida, Congressman Ted Yoho. Ted, we welcome you to America's Forum.
Thank you, JD. I appreciate the opportunity to be on.
Ted, I know you're working hard in your district, but your committee assignment often has you looking to what is transpiring overseas, and will go about as far as Wales, or perhaps more specifically the Times of London, and that op-ed column bearing the byline of both the President of the United States and the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. They said together, quote, "We will be more forthright in the defense of our values because a world of greater freedom is a fundamental part of how we keep our own people safe." That broad-based statement, does it reflect your sentiment?
Yes, sir, it does. I mean, that's something that we have to show a strong signal that we're not going to tolerate this. This is intolerable, what these people are doing, and we have to stand strong together.
Ted, do you believe this op-ed appearing in the Times of London serves as both a signal and a rallying point for other world leaders to join in to build a new international coalition?
Yes, I think you're seeing that, and it needs to happen, and it should have happened. I mean, this is a threat that's been going on. We've seen it, and it comes from a power vacuum that our foreign policy has no direction. And the world leaders that I've talked to and the ambassadors I talked to from different countries tell us they don't know what America stands for. And so this is something that should have happened, and there should be a strong signal from America leading this, but working with these other countries to bring this under control.
You spoke of America leading. Obviously, we have been involved in airstrikes in Iraq. Now, the British Prime Minister, Mr. Cameron, says he is considering joining American air power in that airstrike campaign against ISIS.
That would be welcome, yes.
Well, would it be a welcome sign, but just combined British and American air power, will that be enough, Ted?
No, I think you need to have the Islamic countries, or the Muslim countries, come in on board on this. Iraq, Syria, that's a threat to that whole region, and they need to be front and center on this,
Ted,
along with us.
Ted, Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel has said all options, with the exception of a ground invasion, are on the table to address the threat. Was the Secretary wise in eliminating the option of a ground invasion?
I don't think you should ever, say what you're going to do. I think you should just, the surprise of just showing up and doing what's right. And then when you start saying what you're not going to do, shows a sign of, playing your hands before you need to. And, I just think that's something we shouldn't do. We should just show up with the force that we have available and do whatever we have to. These people are coming to America, and I was against going into Syria, but this group says they are coming to America. They're barbaric, they're brutal, and I believe them, and I don't want them in my country.
So Ted, as in the context of your remarks, you're saying you were skeptical about striking within the borders of Syria, but now you've changed your mind on that. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, you're not hearing that.
Okay, well, spell it out for me. I want to get this straight. What are you saying, Ted?
When we were back in August of last year, when the President, the administration, leadership from both the House and the Senate were all backing President Obama going into Syria, we wrote letters to John Boehner and to the White House requesting hearings and meetings before we would support this. And the American people, the constituents in my 5 district spoke out. 98.1% said stay out of Syria. And so when we were talking in the briefings and to John Kerry, Secretary Hagel, and to the White House Chief of Staff, they had no strategy. They were going after the chemical weapons. They didn't have a timeline. They couldn't tell us if boots were on the ground. John Kerry said boots would definitely be on the ground. And then he reneged on that and said, no, I didn't mean that. When I asked Mr. McDonough, the White House Chief of Staff, how long of a campaign is this? He goes, maybe up to 10 years. And the cost was $1 billion a month. And I'm like, we don't have a clear-cut strategy, so I cannot support this. And that comes from, to me, a lack of leadership, of not having a clear, concise goal of what you're trying to accomplish. But with ISIS, I think the best place to go after them is do what we're doing in Iraq.
Well, as you mentioned this, Ted, it's interesting because the conservative community is by no means unanimous. For example, yesterday, right here on America's Forum, Pat Buchanan said it appears we will have to go into Syria and join forces, form an alliance with Assad to annihilate ISIS. I'd like you to listen together with me to what Pat Buchanan had to say, and then I'd like to get your reaction.
Mm-hmm.
I think that ISIS being the main enemy, that we are going to have to deal with a bad actor named Assad, because one of the two is going to rule Syria in the near-term future. And for my money, I would prefer Assad.
All right, Ted, that's Pat Buchanan's take. Right or wrong?
Well, it goes back to that saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, for the time being. But if you go back to last year, when we were going to go in there, we were going to arm the Syrian rebels. The Syrian rebels is what ISIS came out of. There was I think it was over 100 different factions of rebels fighting in Syria. Which one is the good guy? What we found out is there are very few good people or good groups over there fighting, and ISIS has come out of that. And so we conceivably, we're going to arm that group. And of course, they've got our armament now from what they've taken over in Iraq. And with Mr. Buchanan, I would have to say short term, yeah. And I think it's ironic that a year ago we were going to go in and bomb the Assad air bases. Now we're looking to team up with them. And again, I've put the blame on this as a failure of our foreign policy. I mean, we're dealing with Iran to help the situation in Iraq. And, they've been our enemy all this time, the largest state sponsor of terrorism. And now they're teaming up with the Iraqi soldiers to fight off ISIS, which is not a bad thing. But I just think it shows a lack of our foreign policy, a clear, concise direction of America.
Ted,
and it's put us all in harm's way, and it's put our soldiers and our journalists in harm's way, and we need to stand really strong with a clear, concise policy.
Ted, only a couple of minutes remain, and we thank you for your time. There is another problem that may be at work here. You mentioned earlier you thought ISIS might be here, and that raises the whole notion of illegal immigration and what is going on not only along our borders, but in the interior of our nation. The University of Southern California has a new study out saying that immigrants in that state illegally make up 38% of the agriculture industry, 14% of the construction industry, and half of the illegals there in California have been in the U.S. for at least 10 years. When you hear those numbers from California, and you think about your district in Florida and the implications nationwide, what should be done in this situation of illegal immigration?
The best thing, and again, this is a failure of this administration, we need to enforce the laws on the book, and we need to secure our border. And securing the border has nothing, it has a lot to do with immigration, but right now, with the threats around the world aimed at America, this is a national security threat. It's time for the American people to demand this president securing our borders for national security interests. Sitting on the Foreign Affairs Committee, I hear about the people coming across our southwest border, and there's so many different factions other than Hispanic or Central American descent They're coming over from the Middle Eastern countries, from Asian countries, and these people that they've caught are not here to join the Rotary Club. They're here to do us harm. There's some bad actors in there, and we need to wake up, and we need to secure the border. And we've introduced several different pieces of legislation to do just that.
And we'll have to leave it right there, Ted Yoho, but I'm heartened to hear you basically say that border security is national security, because I know one of your predecessors who said that for a long time. Ted Yoho, thanks for your time. We look forward to having you back, and America's Forum continues after this.